Okay, so let's talk about rounding. All right, rounding to the nearest anything, really. There are just some basic steps we want to review with you today a little bit. All right, remember when you're doing this, you always want to make sure you find the correct place value spot for rounding. If you don't know which place is the tenths or the hundreds or the hundredths, right, it's going to be difficult to do this. In fact, nearly impossible. So you got to know your place value. That's the first step. After you know which place you rounded, and you know what that is, you have to look at the next door neighbor. That's the guy directly on the right. All right. And the rules for that, we know what these are. Let's remember these. These are if it's less than 5, there's no change in that digit. However, if it's 5 or greater, you increase that place by 1. All right. So let's look at the details for this. But again, let's remember that here are our place values, right? You can see right there that the black, those are the whole numbers, right? The red, those are where the decimals are, the fractions, right? The parts of numbers. And remember, when we're going to talk today, we're going to really talk about, let's bring it in a little bit and just talk about right around the decimal point. And we're going to talk about those tenths today, rounding to the nearest tenth. That means all we got to do is look at our friend, the hundredths place, to determine that. Remember the guy right on the right. That's our next door neighbor to the tenths. So let's take a look at how this looks with some examples, shall we? All right, so round to the nearest tenth, we want to first start with this. Highlight the tenths place, right? There it is right there. 8 is highlighted. All right, that's in the tenths place. But remember, we look at our neighbor, the 4 to the right. In this case, we can see that that is less than 5. So our 8 doesn't change, but everything else goes to 0. It's rounded down because it's not more than halfway there. And remember, those zeros, we really don't need them after the decimal there, right? After that 8, after the decimal, we can just say 0.8. There it is, the tenths place. That's the only one we caring about right there. All right, so let's continue. Let's try one more of these. Again, it doesn't matter how big the number is. We can round any decimal number to the nearest tenth, provided we have a hundredths place right next to it. And we do. We have a 7. And what's our rule? Well, if that neighbor is, in this case, 5 or more, it's 5 or more, it's 7, right? It's more than 5 there. That means that 4 has got to change, goes up by 1 place value. So it's now 57.5. Those zeros, right? We round to the nearest tenth. In this case, those zeros, we don't need them now. 57.5 is the answer. So that's a quick review of how to round numbers to the nearest tenth. Remember, the key part is learn your place values, people. They will set you in the right place during this thing.